Hello and welcome back to The Dive presented by Honda, Season 5, Episode 8. We have a couple of big announcements today, one of which is that CLG have won another game. And the other one, rather than tell you, we are actually going to show you. So for our viewers that are just listening at home, you can go and find this video on Twitter or social media. We will also link it below the YouTube, so you can actually watch it as well, because it's a pretty cool video, and we're going to show it right now.
MSI
季中冠军赛
MSI God MSI is back.
Ooh, I especially like the crunchy noises there. How do you guys feel?
Iceland looks sick, dude. Those drone shots are incredible. The country looks so beautiful. I am really, really excited that MSI is back.
Outdoors
Especially after not getting it last year. I felt so bad for Cloud9. We will see if they can make it again this year. But that's right. MSI is back. The location is Reykjavík in Iceland. The venue is very hard to say. Azael, you may take over now with perfect Icelandic pronunciation.
Oh, yeah, 100%. 100% perfect.
Where
the
will
games
they
will
play?
be played at Lagardaskjöld Indoor Sporting Arena, where the historic match of the century, 1972 World Chess Championship was held. Teams will quarantine upon arrival in Iceland for health and safety of our players, staff, and local residents. The event will not be able to accommodate a live audience, so that is a bit unfortunate, but I'm still so happy that we are going to be able to put on this event, despite the fact that there is still, a global pandemic going on. Of course, things do seem to be getting better with vaccines coming out, but of course, the players' health and safety is paramount here. And, from everything I've heard about Iceland and how they're handling the pandemic, it seems like cases are very low there. It seems like one of the safest possible places they could have it. And it's also a good time zone. So I think it makes a lot of sense to put it there. And I'm actually
And they're going to
really,
be
really
quarantining as soon as they get there as well. All the teams are going to do the standard quarantine. Safety procedures for players is going to be the #1 priority. We also have a new format. Guess what? No more play-ins. All teams are going to be thrown into basically a giant group stage here. All 12 teams are going to be here. They're going to be split into 3 different groups of 4 teams. These are going to be best-of-1 round robins. It's double elimination, so they all play each other twice. And the top 2 teams per group are going to advance to the next stage, which has been called the Rumble, which is basically just a smaller, another round robin. It's going to also be best-of-1 double round robin. And then the top 4 teams move on to the bracket stage, which is just semifinals and finals that are going to be best-of-5. So I kind of like the new format of everybody being thrown into the big groups. I know that double elimination and best of ones is not like a whole bunch of games, but
You mean double round robin? You keep saying double elimination.
or double round robin is I mean, people always want maximum number of games. They're like, all right, we need everything to be best of 3s, best of 5s, and that would take forever.
It would.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, it's something that I'm curious to see how I'll feel about when I watch it, because it is a little weird to get 2 group stages in a row. I know this has happened before with like play-ins and stuff, but because everyone that advances out of the groups are going to be going into the same pool afterwards, like you'll see matchups again, which is something I think most of the time you did not see repeat matchups in international performances before, unless it happened in like a knockout stage where teams were beating each other to get there. So I'm a little curious to see how it'll actually play out and how it'll feel to fans and stuff, because there is that little I don't know, wrinkle in there where I'm like, oh, so I'll watch a team play best of ones against this team and then they'll do it again kind of feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited for it. I think it's going to be pretty cool. I actually think it's a positive to have the playing teams all combined with the regular stage teams, and have everyone fighting off. Yes, it is MSI, and yes, that means it's the number one teams. So maybe it won't be as competitive among the major regions versus the smaller regions. But as far as like what we've seen over the last couple of years, the smaller regions, the minor regions, have been actually getting more and more competitive. Right, at Worlds 2020. EU almost got last place in their group in playing. They had to play a tiebreaker to not get last place, and then got knocked out in the first best of five. When it was actually the elimination stage, and then the team that they got knocked out by got 3-0'd by another minor region team. So that is just one example, but we have been seeing more competition. I think from a lot of these top teams, and of course you have to then say, well, that was number one versus EU's number four, right? So that is the big difference here, and I'll be interested to see how they can actually stack up, because you're not going to be going up against a fourth seed. You're going to be going up against very likely G2 or whoever comes out on top, but usually it's G2. So
let's just slot them in there right now.
Yeah, you can pretty much slot them in there right now, right? They basically win every single time. So I think that is the one thing, but I think it's good for the smaller regions to be able to actually prove themselves and see how they stack up against the top teams. And I also think that it's good for North America and for some of these regions to have the opportunity to assert their dominance, right? There's been so much talk about, oh yeah, NA is a minor region, blah, blah, blah. Well, generally speaking, in play-ins, our teams slam the other teams, right? Like, it's usually not that close. And this is going to be our number one seed going up against number one seeds from the other regions. So either you can prove yourselves, and our top teams will take down their top teams and show, hey, it's actually not that close. Maybe we're not as strong as LPL or LCK or whatever, but we're still a big step above. Or we lose and deserved, right? And I think that's exciting. I think that's really cool to be able to see these different teams battling it out.
And we still don't.
Go ahead, Mark.
I was gonna say, we still also don't know like how they're exactly seeding that first play-in stage, or not play-in, but the first group stage game. So like, I assume it'll be like EU, LPL, LCK, but then that means that NA is getting put into one of those because it's only three groups. It's not the four groups. So it's actually not that easy potentially to get out of these, because it's only top two that get out. So it will be really,
especially if you have say NA, LPL, and you have CIS or something, like, or you have you have Gambit or whatever, right? Like, you have a really strong minor region team. I'm not sure if there's going to be some of those teams in pool 2 and some in pool 3. We'll have to actually find out exactly how it's going to be broken down, to your point. But I'm really excited for it. I think that'll be pretty interesting. And to be honest, the Rumble stage is basically a fairly standard MSI group stage, right? Like that's essentially what you would be at anyway. You're going to have the more major regions, and you're going to have 2 minor region teams all in there, or potentially some of the other major regions get knocked out, whatever. But you're going to have the top 6 teams doing double round robin, and then you go into best of 5 semifinals and finals, which is pretty standard MSI format. So I think it's a nice tweak for those who aren't interested in watching minor regions. You don't have to watch until the Rumble stage. But I think it's a win. I think it's cooler than the previous format we had.
Yeah, and I think the solution to people that don't want to watch the minor regions play is that now they're going up against the major ones, and it's more exciting because there's more trash talk on the line. There's always this cloud hanging over. Yet, like, if you win, okay, that's expected. Good job. Go to your room. Finish the rest of your homework. But you know what? If you lose, then you just get run out of town. Shame, shame, shame. And with you're talking about how competitive a lot of the matches between them have been recently. I am so excited to get to see Vietnam again, because we didn't get to see Vietnam at Worlds. There was no MSI. So that's gonna be my biggest hype. I hope it's not jinxing them or anything. Hope all these issues for everybody is fine this time around. But I really felt that missing at last Worlds, because as far as major regions, smaller regions is sometimes used. Vietnam is one of the biggest servers that we have in League of Legends. They have more players than North America has. So super excited. Hope that they get to get some representation, get included this time around as well. And that is going to be hype. Do you guys, if we had to put your money right now, what do you think the odds would be on Cloud9? Because they are at the top of the standings, so they should be odds on the leaders. But Sleepers here, Team Liquid, even though their record not so good, always I feel like a contender.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's tough. Odds, like to put a number on it is tough, man. I mean, I think Cloud9 clearly looks like the best team right now, but there's still 6 games to play, and then there's playoffs, which are a whole different beast. TL 1 lock-in, so I'd say they still have pretty good odds. I don't know. I don't really know how to place the odds on it. I think Cloud9
I'll tell you, C9 100% full send. I put them number 1 in my power rankings. I don't see anything looking different. They're beasting. They're gonna keep beasting.
I like it, Mark. I don't know what went on with your voice during that, but I like it.
I'm excited.
That's the full confidence, Mark. That's the happy Mark.
The higher pitch my voice, the more confident. Yeah.
I love it. All right. Well, I lost my fantasy game today. We might as well do the fantasy update, even though we are losers. Mark,
really?
Did you win?
Oh, really? You guys are losers? I slapped LS. I'm actually sad that I have probably, I think, my highest point week, and he's struggling to pick up dubs here.
I've lost by under 10 points 2 weeks in a row now. Feels bad. And this week I was playing against Emily, and I think it was. God, who was it? I don't know. Her support, whoever it was, got like 50 or 60 points in the last game because she had the pick, and then it was like a 50-minute game and passed me by 7 points. And I'm just 2 weeks in a row.
Oh, that reminds me. Well, last week when Azael was discrediting me for my bans and saying that the points against do not include the bans, they actually do. A viewer tipped me off, has my back. So at least I can hold on to that. Part of the reason why my points against me are so low is because of the bans.
Dude, you've taken away like 40 points or whatever. I've got a bunch of bans too.
I've
taken
like
away at least 40 points against
40
me.
points every single day. I checked. I have the most points banned away. He's still trying to discredit me. Azael, I just want a little crumb. Azael, please approval.
I mean, I'm getting screwed here. You see the points against? It's like 1,700 against me. The next highest is like 1,500.
All right. It's not going to happen. It's
just
got
to shore up your defense, Azael. I'm still trailing behind Gabby. I'm second in points 4. I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah. I think I'm doomed. I've accepted my fate. Tactical's not really getting me any points. That was my first pick. He's really let me down here, you know.
He's a dud for sure.
Yeah, he's definitely a dud. Maybe he'll pick it up in the second half, but I feel like a Blaze Olive is it's gonna be tough to win with a Blaze Olive. He just gets no points every week. Every week it's like the enemy mid laner gets 100 and something points, and mine gets like 30. So it's tough. It's tough out here in these streets. Fantasy not going well for me. But
I like how you started out flaming during the draft, and now it's all sad.
I mean, I was just flaming for the memes, man. Just trying to make the draft entertaining, to be honest.
Just a joke. Smiling face with the tears behind it.
Honestly, couldn't care less if I lose. But
that's what they all say, Azael.
It's true. You're right.
Spoken like a true loser.
I'm staying up all night trying to plan on my picks and bans. I spent at least 30
That's why
hours
he's
a week
discrediting the
bans.
bans.
It's all in my head. Definitely been a rough couple of weeks for me because of the fantasy bans. All right, we got some on positives. We got some more Apple reviews. If you guys want to leave us reviews on Apple Podcasts, you can find the dive on there. You can leave us a funny review, and maybe we will read your review if it's funny. This one comes from an annoyed soccer fan. He says, "We have 9 to 5s, Azael." Don't know what that's referencing. Actively listen to this week's episode at 8 a.m. Eastern. Oh, because he was actually 5 a.m. PST.
Because you said no one wakes up at 5.
Ah, true. We got an esports fan who's up at 5 a.m. Good job. He says, I legit LOL every time you talk about fantasy because Freak got Saligo last pick and he complained about it. Chinchilla for Kobe. 5-star rating despite Mark C. Well, that's impressive. That's more like a 7-star then, really. Azael's commentary about the $11 million golden glue still makes me chuckle. Keep the jokes coming. Love the content.
You had some good ones this weekend too. The Relo Star and stuff like that.
Oh, the Relo Star, I was proud of that.
That was my favorite for sure.
All right, we got the next one here. This one comes from Splitorch, the greatest LOL show in the West. The dive delivers great content from. So it says super, but I don't know if it's subpar. I want to believe they says subpar, It
I
could
think he's
also
trying
be
to say
super.
superb.
It could be
analyst.
superb. It could be super, or it could be subpar. We're gonna say
Wait,
subpar.
they're editing it.
Subpar analysts
No,
such as
our
Mark
producer
Z.
edited it. It
The
says
show
superb.
is factually superior to other LOL shows with similar content, such as Euphoria. True. From lesser region of EU. Thanks for all your hard work.
I think that's
No
the first
problem.
review that spoke highly of me.
No,
I'm
it says
on a
subpar.
hot streak.
I'm definitely going
of one.
subpar. All right, last one here we got this week comes from Adam Eats Bears. Wow, that's an aggressive name. Best League podcast. Been listening for years now. You guys should also follow my pet hedgehog and corgi on Instagram. Sesame and Rigby. You know, I'll actually search that right now. Let's see. Let's go find.
Yeah,
Sesame
but will
and
you
Rigby.
you said you'll search it, but will you hit that follow?
Well, I need a rec from one of
I
you two
have
before
to
I do it.
actually see, right? You know, I got to see if Sesame and
what's it
Rigby
called?
are
What's the
worth a
spelling?
follow first. Sesame and Rigby.
Here's what's going to happen now. You guys are going to encourage all our Apple podcast reviews to be like, follow my this, follow my that.
Oh,
That's
this is
why
a
I
pretty-
hate doing it.
This is actually a
Little
really
do they
cute
know,
Instagram.
Mark. As soon as we hit the follow, like a day later, boom, unfollow.
This is a very cute Instagram.
Actually, I don't open Instagram enough to be able to do that. I don't even use this in quarantine. I don't take any more pictures. I
Neither
literally
do I.
haven't used Instagram all year.
I feel like
mean,
the last.
I don't
last
have
time
any
posted a
pets like
picture
you
was,
guys. I don't have
Christmas.
any. I don't have any loved ones here either. It's just me and Travis. Nobody wants to see pictures
Travis
of me
isn't
and
a loved
Travis.
one.
No,
He doesn't qualify. Oh, this person's followed by Ovly. I'll give him a follow. There you go. I'm in there. All right. Thank you guys for the reviews, especially the one that called Mark a subpar analyst. Like that one a lot.
Superb.
Subpar. On to the LCS.
Jury's still out.
You guys want to start at the top here? You mentioned Cloud9. How likely do we think it's going to win? They're 2 games up on the pack now. They're 3 games up on TL. Blabber has been crushing, 1 player of the week. Is this clearly the best team? Do they have weaknesses? Is Fudge still a weakness? What are you guys thinking?
I feel like these are the same old Cloud9 questions just recycled again. Blabber, is he good? Oh, let's test it. We got to get into the labs here. Calculating. I think he's still good. Yeah. Blabber still got it. Is Cloud9 clearly the
But
best
is he
team?
clearly the best? That's what I'm asking. Is he way ahead of the field? I didn't just say is Blabber good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's extremely clear. As seen even by, and I love this too. How with 100 Thieves recording the heist and stuff, we get a lot more behind the scenes of player reactions. Like literally, go watch that video again of Closer reacting after their Cloud9 game, and he's like having a breakdown, freaking out about Blabber, he's so good. What do I do? And Closer is one of the other best jugglers that we have here. And 100
best,
Thieves,
right,
one of our top teams. Oh yeah, Mark disagrees.
I do.
Oh yeah, Mark's got special stats, by the way. I saw him in the stats channel loading up on some ammo.
I mean, we don't have to do that here. I got Hotline League later. I'm ready to go to war.
We can get it.
We can get into it later. Let's focus on C9. Blabber is, I think, the best in his role by a significant margin, like compared to other roles. Like AD, you can debate maybe.
You're saying
Sven,
the biggest difference
FBI.
between number 1 and 2 of any role.
Right. Yeah, I think every other role you can at least have an interesting conversation. I don't think it's really close for Blabber. I think he's early MVP candidate. He's the most important player on the best team right now, or at least the best performing player on the best team right now. So I really do think it's Blabber, and I think C9 is looking really good considering I'm still at the point where I'm like, is this their peak? Can they keep getting better? Like I could believe it.
They can get better.
They better. I want them to peak harder. Did you hear Fudge's interview? It was pretty good too. It was definitely hurt a little, where he starts talking about how, yes, even though we are better than everyone in NA, that doesn't mean we're good. We still need to be better because they have their eyes on international competition. So they truly are focused on MSI, are focused on representing North America to the best of their ability on international stage, as well as winning the LCS. My hot topic for Cloud9 though is Perks' BM, and this is the biggest thing for me. Perks now, I feel like we've had a steady growth of improvement from Perks' play since lock-in tournament. His team play plus his individual play. Now he's at the point where he's freaking picking LeBlanc, solo killing Demonte, and then insta buying a Medjais. Like actually before he even completes a first item. first item Medjais is the most BM thing that a mid laner can do to you, especially after he just solo killed your ass. Like, holy man.
You know what's more BM? You get solo killed and then you buy it.
Is that though? Because
I think it's kind of funny, like because it's like you're so bad, it doesn't even matter that you solo killed me. I'm gonna farm your ass for stacks in my book.
But then still you're just like, all right, you just got solo killed. So I think I agree with Azale. Like, it's really funny then, but it's more BM to like,
yeah. That's hilarious.
To be like, I'm gonna keep doing this to you. Get ready.
He's got a lost chapter in his inventory, and I go like, what the? He just upgraded his Dark Seal into a Medjais, comes back, and
it's thematic, right? He's got the book and he's got the chapter, so that goes together. It's synergy there.
There you go. Just he is a prolific reader, Perks. So he's keeping up on the times here.
He's been playing
honestly
really well.
Though, it's big for their team.
I mean, he got 2 solo kills, I think, on Demonte in that game. The level 2 one looked funny, but I was casting that game, and I felt pretty strongly that this was like a fairly standard play that Demonte did, where he just kind of got his bluff called. He moved up to the top side of the river, right, where his jungler was playing on that side of the map. And so often, mid laners will do this in a losing situation, but they step towards the brush, and the other jungler's like, oh, sorry, sir. Okay, jungler's there. All right, backing off. And Perks was just like, nah, I don't believe you.
Just sat on him and autoed.
I don't think the jungler's there. Just going to keep going. I have my flash if he is, but dude here, that's fine. I can flash away. You're playing a Zir. You're level 2 or whatever. You can't actually do anything if the jungler is here, so it's fine. I'm just going to call your bluff. And I thought that was actually really smart. I thought that probably no other mid laner in the league would have actually done that. Even our top level mid laners are generally more on the passive side. Usually people will play with respect to the jungler and say, hey, he's probably there.
Yeah, that was definitely good by Perks. I will say for the other side, he could Azir could have just flashed over the wall.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to walk back. So he would have got him. It would have been like, bam, burned your flash. And that's a good play. Called the bluff, got the summoner spell out. But I don't think it had to result in a solo kill.
Yeah, I agree. He greeted that out too much. After he got his bluff called, he didn't want to flash. So, but either way, that was pretty hype. I still think I have the concern about Fudge. Jack had his tweet like Fudge hater is pretty quiet right about now and stuff. And Fudge has been playing a lot better than Lock-In. I'm fully on board with that. But I still do feel like when Fudge has a good game, it feels like it's because of Blabber. And I don't know if that's fair. I think he has improved, and I don't think he feels like a big liability anymore like he did in Lock-In. In Lock-In, it was just like, well, Fudge might just lose the whole game for you no matter what's happening. Now it feels like, Fudge, you're pretty solid. But I just still don't feel like he's creating solo advantages a lot of the time. And you don't necessarily have to, but if you're looking towards international play, that is where it becomes more concerning, where it's like, okay, we're saying, Blabber, you're way above the rest of the field for junglers in North America. He's not going to be way above every jungler at MSI, right? That's where it becomes more difficult, where every player has to really pull their weight because the opposing teams are so good. And of course, it's fine to pick Camille and Gnar and wait for your jungler to come. Like, that's generally how it works, right? You have the Olaf there, you ult him up a mini Gnar and you get those kills. But if you cannot create your own advantages, and if you're able to be exploited in the 1v1, that's where there is still a little bit of concern for me. But there's still lots of time to grow for Fudge, and if he can continue this level of improvement week over week, then maybe he can be in a really good spot come MSI.
Yeah, I don't think he's a weakness. Like how we kind of talk about him and Lock-In a little bit. I think he's not their best player. He's
more middle
arguably
of the road
their
now.
worst player. But like, you have top 2 players across the board nearly in every single role. And Fudge, like you said, is not getting exploited anymore, and he's doing quite well. We'll have to see when best of 5s roll around, and he's up against someday Alfari again, because that's really where the exploiting happened. It wasn't actually during the round robin portion quite as much. There was a little bit still going on there, but it was really the best of 5s. I think people stick in people's minds. So I think for now he's passing the test, looking great. But the best of 5s is where he's really going to have to cut his teeth.
Yeah, I mean, and as of right now, because since he is on an incline for improvement, I'm going by most recent game, just single game sample size, and looking at little details and little things to show improvement and to award and commend. And there are things like perfectly timing his Camille ult to dodge away from Narcisse. And those are the types of things where I'm like, good job, yeah. And then you look forward, and like you guys are saying, the Alfari matchups, the Impact matchups. I mean, and this was against Someday, so these are the type of matchups that you're looking for those little things in, and I think definitely deserves credit. But as you're saying, like it's only very recently in that last game where they took him off of the kind of weak side soaking duty, right? 5 games of Gragas in a row,
actually got banned
soaking
that game, so
yeah,
maybe he
and it was tank Gragas every time. None of those Gragas were AP Gragas. Then it was the Karma. Then it was the Malphite. And this time, counterpicked Camille, which was quite good. But yeah, definitely still an area that they are working on.
All right, so I got a question for you guys now. 100 Thieves, they're 8-4. They're sitting in that kind of tie for second right now. Do you guys still feel that they are a legitimate championship contender, or have 100 Thieves fallen off? Their games are getting a lot longer. It feels like they're a lot less dominant. And, they haven't been able to pull off these incredible dives and stuff as consistently as they were and lock it in the earlier, part of the split. Are they getting worse? Is everyone catching up? What's happening?
Well, they're definitely getting worse, as they've self-admitted. Multiple players, as well as the coach, talking about how what made them so strong is not as strong anymore. No more TF, no more Galio coming through. A lot of the big differences, and even it's not just restricted to those champions, but when you do make the shift towards Azir and Orianna and more
Syndrome.
control mages and scaling mages. We've had so many people standing up it's like an accordion almost here.
Always adjusting our seats and stuff
for our cameras, because I feel
it just starts sliding down, and then I realize I'm like, over time, I'm just.
I got my legs tucked under me too. I'm a weird sitter for sure.
It's like, hey guys.
But it's self-admitted by them though. They are having kind of an identity crisis moment, I feel like, right now with the small shifts that have been going on in the meta. And these really proactive early game plays, I think, is what really made them shine. And we're all focused on their team coordination, how well they were able to use early points of pressure, getting more out of objective trades by getting a slight lead in timing on an objective, and then sending Huhi or someone else back cross map and covering for the counterplay. Thought that was one of the best things that they had done in lock-in, was actually trying to cut off possible objective trades that normally would be like, okay, you're getting a couple top turret plates, for this mid play, or you're getting a Rift Herald for Dragon type of thing. And because of timing windows and vision, and then sending people back, they were able to cut off the other half basically of that trade. But those are not happening anymore, and so now their games are turning way longer. You can see by the game time just increasing exponentially here for 100 Thieves, and the cleanliness and some of these fights, and it coming down to a lot of these really scrappy ones. Where after the game, you guys look like in Demonte's post-game celebrations now, because they went from all this dancing and like dabbing and stuff to being like, oh, we won again, and then after every game they're like, another heist.
I mean, I've watched them extremely closely, especially in light of like a power ranking that I decided to make, or that I had to make, and I have pretty strong opinions actually about how they're playing the game right now, because I've watched really I was gonna put Closer top 4, top 5, like I think a lot of people would on their own, but then when you rewatch the first 9 games that they've played this split, they have really lost their way. I think not just him either, and I think that's what some people think I'm saying. It's like Closer's fault or something. It's not, because Huhi, you're talking about all these roams. He's the highest dual proximity bot support in the league right now. It's actually insane that he just doesn't roam at all as much anymore. Like, he does it sometimes, but it's not at all the strengths that you were talking about in lock-in tournament. They still have super high priority. Like, their bot lane is the highest 4% bot lane in the league. If you disclude his Senna games, because FBI has a ton of fasting Senna games, he's the highest gold CSD at 10 and 15 and stuff. He's smurfing lane. Some days it's the same way. Their side lanes are hard smurfing. They're still in laning phase. They're both some days top 2 in CSD goal difference and EXP difference and like 4%. He's like crushing. But what they didn't lock in was they took that priority and they made a lot of proactive plays. And that totally fell apart in week 1 and week 2. And they have abandoned it. They have not dove since, I'm pretty sure, like that C9 game, really. And for the most part, they spam pick Olaf and they hard farm and they take Drakes off their natural priority and take Rift Heralds off their natural priority. And they have become totally non-interactive. They have the lowest kills and assists at 15 in the league as a team. And then Closer is at 0.8 kills and assists at 15 on average in a game. And for people who don't realize this, that is the all-time tied lowest for jungler in history of LCS with 10 or more games. Okay? This is historically inactive. The other people in that category is Onda from his FlyQuest season and Mike Young from his, not his Phoenix 1 season, his Echo Fox season. And the only other person who's ever been lower was Moon through 10 games on, I think it was CLG before he picked it up towards the back half of the split. But like, it is historically inactive. And like, I don't think people realize this. I think that there's not that many big mistakes that some of the players are making, and they don't realize how inactive this 100 Thieves team is. It's actually insane.
And I think, like we were kind of alluding to with the change for Damonte of champions, not having a mid laner roaming around and being proactive as well is a big part of that. Because you're saying like, it's not all Closer. Now that there is this desync, it's not just him as an individual, playing Azir or Orianna or whatever. But if you don't have a mid laner that is looking for a lot of these proactive plays, it does seem like it's kind of not as high priority in their in-game shot calling anymore.
So given that, Mark,
100
Thieves, contender or pretender for the championship?
I think they're a huge pretender right now. I mean, they're lucky to be at their record. They were losing games to CLG both times before they threw. They should have lost that Dignitas game this weekend. They did lose to Golden Guardians. Their average game time is the longest in the league for a reason. They have good team fighting in like the late game, and they do have really good objective control. Like I was saying, that's actually how they win a lot of their games, is what happened in the Dignitas game, where other teams have to make plays around objectives because they're going to get Soul or something if they don't, or Elder, and then those teams F it up because it's not as good teams, or they're struggling in the late game, or it's still, people are still figuring out how they're going to play these situations. So they still get a lot of wins off this play style, but like that is not going to work against teams like Cloud9, and assuming Team Liquid turns it around, or whoever. I think they're currently a pretty big pretender.
I like this. Or Isaiah, you can give your thoughts on 100 Thieves first, and then I have a follow-up.
I mean, you guys went pretty deep on it, so I don't have a tremendous amount to add. The only thing I wanted to say was just along the tier list stuff for Mark. I do think that just the community has a tendency to not recognize the context in which these tier lists are being made, right? And I know it's often said, but people don't always listen. And that is one thing that I think, I wasn't even a part of this tier list, but like I felt bad seeing some of you guys get flack for people not understanding what the context is, right? The tier list was based on performance in Spring Split. Nothing else.
No lock-in.
No lock-in, no historical, nothing else, right? So that I think is the missing thing. And I think that people tend to say, jungle tier list. All right, who's the best? Okay, Blabber, Santorin, Closer, Spica. Okay.
Sven, Spica, Dardoch.
Whatever, right? Like, whatever order. But you have your historical implications, and people do that without really examining the performance for like this little isolated blurb. And that's not a thing that's unique to your tier list here. This is a thing that happens with tier lists all the time, because we are trying to do them for, like, doing a historical one isn't interesting because guess what?
Everyone agrees.
Everyone agrees, right? It's the same people that are going to be at the top of every single one. And that's why, we used to have really contentious ones with mid lane, where it's like, oh, okay, Bjergsen's had a bad first couple weeks and they do a mid lane tier list and he's number 4. And people are like, you're an idiot. And it's like, well, actually, he's only played 8 games and he hasn't played that well. So I think that's something people should keep in mind with the tier lists. But I think they're fun, and I think they create a lot of discussion, which is the point of them. And I think that is very successful. I felt a little bit bad for Mark getting roasted as though he's just an absolute moron and had no reason whatsoever to put Closer low.
Yeah, I don't know, Kobe, if you're on your point was on this topic or not. So I don't want to
Go ahead.
hop on again because obviously it's something I'm very passionate about. Because like when everyone just goes, "You're a moron," I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm gonna have to double down now." So like I've done so much research on this. I rewatched all his games. He has 1 kill from a gank in the first 15 minutes of a game through 9 games. If you look at his first 9 games, and it was the Immortals game, and that was right after he messed up his first clear and almost got Someday and him killed contesting the top side scuttle, and he recovered fine with that gank. But that was the only one he's had. And maybe you can throw the Team Liquid one in where he went bot and helped force their flash in bot lane, but then his bot lane is actually the one that 2v2 gets the kill on Team Liquid's bot lane in the first 9 games. Those are his two
So when
ganks.
you say 1 gank, do you mean one kill, or do you mean
1 kill from a gank? But that's he's only done 2 ganks, I'm pretty sure. That one and the Team Liquid one. He's shown up for a couple others, but he's actually mostly counter ganking. He's often second to the play behind the other people, even on his own team. Like Demonte will usually get there first. His counter ganks, they're usually 1-for-1s, like he's cleaning up. Like you saw that even in the game this weekend against Dignitas, where Dardoch dove under turret and he got a free kill. A lot of his kills are like that. His dives, there was the first game or maybe it was the second game, he killed himself top in a dive, and then the one against C9 where they got 1 for 3. That was the only other dive he's done this split that I can remember. And you know, like when you start looking at all this stuff, I was gonna put him 5th, but like in performance, it's not been good. And I don't think he's a bad player. If you ask me, I still said multiple times, he's a top 4 jungler in the league.
Yeah.
I would pick him if I was a GM, top 3, top 4.
But
I'm just saying that he's not had
weeks. He's been bad.
I wouldn't even necessarily say bad, because there's legitimately good things too that he does. That, you know, like when I'm obviously trying to defend my take, I'm not listing these things off first. But his vision control and playing around priority is actually really good. Like Someday gets to snowball his lead, like that Dignitas game, because Closer absolutely takes over that side of the jungle with map control and stuff and vision control. And then, you know, Fake Gods back GP ult farming and barrel farming and falling behind, because Closer does that very well. But I think a lot of the things, like I don't think it's that hard to spam pick Olaf first clear power farm while you're like, he has the best laning bot lane in the league. And then if you look at most of their Drake takes, it's actually coming off inherent bot lane priority, not something he's had to kill someone for or gank someone for. And like these are why, like when I look at what the other, like Jose Diodo doesn't, no offense to FlyQuest bot lane and stuff, but like he doesn't have that privilege when they're picking Seraphine Maokai to just be able to go take Drake. That Dignitas game that happened this weekend, I know it's not in the first 9 that I included in my ranking, but I think it highlights the point very well. They went bot off natural bot priority, tried to force Drake. His bot lane messed it up. They died. They reset. They try to force it again. They die again. They reset. He clears his topside jungle, comes back bot lane again with natural bot priority, and then they take it for free because Dardoch goes and takes Rift Herald on the flip side of the map. And like, that's not a play that everyone can make, you know. And I think like when you really dig in, you really look at the games. You go, how are they getting all these dragons? How are they, you know, what is happening in these games? I think a lot of people just kind of default to thinking that, you know, like these are the rankings in my head, and Closer is a really good team fighter too. He's super clean, mechanically really good, and he doesn't make big blunders usually. But he had a couple this in the tournament. I think the first game of his whole split, he went blue side, tried to go blue to blue after an invade, and he died to Svenskeren, and he just ran right into him in his own blue jungle. Like people don't remember these games and these plays, but they happened, and I'm not going to ignore them.
See,
he's not crazy.
You need to have Mark, you need to have a bunch of hyperlinks in your tier list.
I know, this is like time-stamped everywhere.
Exhibit A, Exhibit B, just listed out there under them.
Yeah. And it's like, I can't get around this point off. Historically low kills and assists. People try and say like, oh, well, he's playing Olaf, and this is like, you know, I'm like, watch Blabber play Olaf and tell me that this thing can't get kills pre-15 minutes, dude. Like, it's not their game plan.
And it's funny too, because everybody recognizes that, you know, this difference in 100 Thieves and how they're kind of stumbling now as a team in this mid game. Yeah. And yet, because like you're saying, like I know these players, I have these players associated in my head, how good they are, you know, relative in this league. And so when you see that visual of a ranking, then
yeah, and I mean, I don't blame the people who are on Twitter and they see Dominate's crop tweet of the power ranking, you know, and then go, Mark's lost his goddamn mind. I don't blame anyone who does that, because to Azael's point, you know, that's like, it's clickbait, you know, at that point. But I think if you know, and again, I'm not even saying Closer's the problem. I'm not saying he's the worst player on the team or anything, but purely from like what are you doing in the game?
Mm-hmm.
That's the ranking.
All right. From one interesting and contentious topic here, I wanted to bring up one as well from one of the teams that's actually below 100 Thieves in TSM. Those are the two teams tied at 8 and 4. But Team Liquid, to me, I think plays off this so well because Azale posed a question: contender or pretender? Everyone will say, much like your associated tier lists, Team Liquid is a contender, right? I would be remiss. I don't think you guys are going to say they're not contenders. There's no way. But they are one game below 100 Thieves, and they are having some similar problems as far as these mid games and the late game. Team Liquid has amazing early game stats. They are still blasting a lot of these lanes. Bottom lane has started to get some kills as well. Tactical came under fire for some of his team fights, a lot of positioning in some of the games. Alfari is still a beast in the top side. They even showed up again, getting him counterpick. I know their game versus Immortals, they basically reversed everything that happened in the first matchup that they had with Immortals, where Revenge got counterpick, a solo kills Alfari, bottom lane counters the Senna Tom Kench with Blitzcrank, Kaisa. They go with the super aggressive, Pullman getting the kills on bottom side early, and Team Liquid reversed the entire draft and actually reversed the entire game and beat them in the same way that they got beaten. So they are definitely, looking back, taking notes, coaching on some of these previous games. And yet there are a lot of these games where people are getting picked off in the mid game. They are misexecuting in team fights. What do you guys see as wrong with Team Liquid right now, causing them to be in the middle of the standings where nobody thought they would be? Lock-in champs, spending a bunch of money, roster undeniably good. What's the take here as far as that compared to 100 Thieves on this contender pretender scale, where right out of the bat you're like, okay, 100 Thieves for sure pretenders, but I'm pretty sure you guys would say that Team Liquid are 100% contenders.
For me, I think it's not always the same thing that's making them lose, for starters. I think that when you look at some of the earlier games, we even heard Alfari talking about this. Like, I think it was just a little bit of cockiness, not having respect for the other top laners in the league. Blind picking Ken with Aurelia up and these sorts of things, and getting dunked on by Revenge. And they've had a few games like that where he's just like, well, I'm just going to blind Ken and then I'm better than you. And it's like, well, turns out kind of weren't. Like,
you may be, but how much?
But it's like, maybe you are, but well, not that much better,
Not to offset the matchup.
So I do think some of that was cockiness as far as like some of the Alfari performances. To me, the thing that stands out, and this isn't to pin everything on him, but I think Tactical has had a really bad split. I think Tactical has been pretty bad overall, almost the whole split. When you even compare to Lock-In, when you compare to Worlds last year, when you compare to Summer Split last year, it feels night and day to me. He feels very inconsistent. I think that they're much less dominant as far as their duo, compared to what we saw in Lock-In, where they were just like slamming everyone. But also, I just feel like he consistently is making individual errors. When I think about the Tristana game, where they built this whole comp around him, he just like randomly walks mid and starts attacking the tower by himself with no one around him and dies, and then goes back mid lane. He's like walking through the river instead of walking through their own jungle with no vision and no one around him, and dies. Then he walks into a Galio in a team fight who's channeling taunt in full vision and dies. And it's like, and then in the final team fight, people were giving him a pass for this one, and it is really difficult, to be fair, because it was like Hecarim and something else. Can't remember.
They had a lot of dive, Kaisa, something else.
It was Kaisa and Hecarim that dove him. But he died without Buster Shot. He died, and he did live for like a second or two, after getting out of CC, and he was still fairly healthy and didn't actually Buster Shot, disengage anything. His positioning wasn't great. Is that one on him? 100%? No, of course. It's a team effort to peel for your AD, right? It's not just on you. But I don't think that game was the only game. I think even in the game that he just played that they won yesterday, they had this skirmish. It was against Immortals, I want to say, where he basically just like took a 1v2 in the river while he was moving up to his team instead of just trying to like run to his teammates. That basically ended up with Core JJ then trying to turn around and get back to him. And by the time Core JJ got back, Well, Tactical's like 10%, so he dies, and then Cortej's stuck against the Senna, and he dies too. And I just think that like it's not as though he's playing horrible all the time or anything like that. I'm not trying to put that out there, but I don't think he's playing anywhere near the level that he had been before, which I thought was like really, really high, really high level of consistency. Where now I feel like I see a lot of mistakes from him in team fighting. I feel like I see a lot of mistakes in positioning, and it just feels like mental errors and stuff. So I think that's certainly contributing to it.
Would you place him 8th on a performance-based tier list, despite being top 3 or 4 in your mind?
I don't know.
I don't know about.
I don't know about 8th. Yeah.
I know.
I think having to go.
So I was gonna say, I think the junglers are a lot closer in the middle. I think there's some AD carries, and it's like a more spread out. Yeah,
not doing so well. But yeah, I think that, and I would also say that I feel like you talk about closer not really being active and not really being involved in stuff. I don't know what actually Santorin's stats are in the early game, but I feel like when I think about what he was doing for FlyQuest last year, I felt like he was involved in early ganks and early things so much more often than this year. And I don't know if that's just like a product of environment where he's like, I don't have to because all my lanes are going to win, or if it's a playstyle thing or what. And I would have to dig into the stats and kind of look back at the games. But last year, I felt like he got so many like level 2 ganks on champions that people weren't really expecting it, and always was really known for his like really creative pathing and being so surprising with these early plays. And he pulled those off pretty consistently, and I can't really think of them doing that at all this year. So I think it's a combination of things.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I think like Tactical draws the most attention because it's been the most consistent in some of the bigger mistakes. But like there was a week or two where Jensen was making a lot of errors. There was like the Alfari ones we already talked about. Santorin had that Nidalee game where he was like missing spears on stun targets. Like I think across the board, people on Team Liquid feel like they've had a bit of a hangover from lock-in tournament, which does happen sometimes, like from MSI to this. So I think maybe there's some of that going on. I don't know, but
lock-in wasn't like that. It
wasn't
right
grueling,
at the start of the
right?
year, right? Like, yeah.
I don't know, but I think one of the reasons that they get more of a pass than say 100 Thieves in my book is because 100 Thieves, when they were jamming in lock-in tournament, still lost to C9, whereas Team Liquid, when they were jamming, won the tournament. And so, like, if you look at like, okay, well, first they have to get back to that level before they improve from there. And we've already seen a higher peak out of Team Liquid, which I think is why there is that little bit of extra, community breathing room that they're giving them.
Kobe?
Looks like I've been looking up the jungle proximity for Santorin. He is currently middle of the pack for Team Liquid, a little bit on the low side.
Yeah, he's still tied for third, fourth in kills and assists at 15.
It's 40% jungle proximity. Highest is 44%.
Yeah, he hasn't been bad by any means, but it just kind of stood out that I'm not recalling as many.
He's second in goal
moments.
Difference.
Because I felt like his early
largely
he's actually second in forward percentage for junglers.
Yeah. I actually think I put him second on my tier list. I actually think he's been pretty good. Excuse me, he's third in goal difference. Well, I don't know anymore where they were based off last weekend to this weekend because I had 9 games versus 12 game sample size, so it goes around. But I think he's been to your point, he's not been the FlyQuest borderline like
guy.
Yeah, who is dominating, but I think he's been solid.
Mm-hmm.
I would say just on the little adding bit on the tactical thing, I was kind of sad because I was so hyped up last year. I was like, oh my god, this NA rookie is just popping off. He's carrying games for Team Liquid with all the veterans around him, and then at Worlds he also performed so well under pressure on the international stage. And I was so excited, and we kind of touched on it a little bit last week, but there's been little bits of like he did an interview with Travis. They did a little touch on it in their Team Liquid squads of like burnout and some other stuff. They're all trying to work on as a team, and so I really hope that we see a good bounce back from Tactical because that's what I got a lot of my NA talent investment in. Him, Blabber, Spica, all these
Vulcan.
Guys. Vulcan, you know what? Even now that the OS players are residency, I'm claiming FBI as well.
So what about the other teams that are kind of sitting up and around the top? We have Dig, EG, TSM that we haven't touched on. that are sitting either 8-4, 7-5. Are any of these
Yeah.
teams you think legit championship contenders? I think Dignitas was starting to get a lot of notice. Then they kind of had a couple more unimpressive games where people are like, oh, okay, maybe we were right. Maybe they're not that good. But they had actually started picking up quite a few wins. They had beaten a number of good teams. Do you think any of these teams really are kind of contenders?
So this one isn't interesting to me because I want to place their contender bar at not contender for championship so that I can then say they are contenders, because I feel like people
All right,
want
let's place
to
it
deduct,
at semifinals then, top 4.
People want to deduct so much points from this Dig team. It just feels like so much of the community is like they just want to stuff them back down there and like, get back down there where you belong. Quit popping your head up here into the top of the standings. But I can't. Yeah, like you say, okay, maybe semifinals, something like that is more reasonable, because I still would not, legitimately be able to, like, with confidence be like, okay, so yeah, they're a contender for championship, but they are contenders for overperforming everybody's expectations for this team for sure. They have legitimately been playing team fights very well. Dardok's early games have been going extremely well for them. A lot of the team fights are going way better than people thought. Especially looking at Fake God and Saligo. There definitely have been some brain fart moments, and I started cracking up when Azale called this out in their most recent game, where it is this huge comeback victory for CLG, and one of the breaking point team fights is Tristana. I think she had a skin or something, because the explosive shot charge was really bright to me, and the first time around watching it, I was also like, wait a second. How did he die? And then I go back and look at the replay, and I'm watching it back for an analyst test, and I'm like, my God, this explosive shot charge was on Renekton's head for a full duration. It was not popped by Tristana's hands, okay? That just timed out. And Saligo, like, lives this initial, thrust from CLG, and they're chasing them back with 4 people, but he's like 250 HP a year or something, and he's walking next to the Renekton with an explosive charge that's at, like, 1 below maximum, about to explode for a good 2 seconds. And I'm like, oh my God, watching the replay, you're like, get out of there, man! Duck! Get out! Like, dive! Run! But, like, and it is like, it must have been a skin or something, because it was definitely hidden within the rest of them, but it was super bright, and then that thing explodes, and I start laughing.
The worst part about it was it gave I think it was Turtle or whoever the kill, gave the enemy
it's Turtle, the Tristana,
which gave him a reset to jump away and actually survive when he would have died too. So it was so bad.
But, like, that is like that's the thing you find in review. That's okay. I wasn't, like, looking particularly.
He was probably looking at the Tristan, not at his own character.
Exactly. There's some in comms. This is within a team fight. They're like, chase. And like I said, I even, looking at the first time around, it's kind of hidden. It's a little bit brighter. But I do legitimately think all those things previously listed for Dignitas have been really strong. And definitely a lot better than people expected, given the lineup. So I think they deserve this credit. Maybe with the contender bar being a bit lower.
Don't push me to EG. I'm talking TSM when you asked who I think could actually be contenders.
TSM, Mark.
Because I don't think it's EG, but I think TSM could be. They swapped their playstyle a little bit this weekend, which I liked. They went more 1-3-1, more early game with Jay Syndra. And I think both games, their 1-3-1 was actually not that bad. It felt like other things were going wrong for them. And overall, I like to see them branching out. I said a couple weeks ago that, like, this feels like a team that's going to be 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I still feel like that. And I think overall they're going to keep getting better. Do they get to the point where they can actually contest C9? I don't know, because right now they are still, I feel like, a fair amount behind. But I do think that Sword Art's playing better. Lost is playing. I think the whole team's playing better. I think I'm actually largely positive on TSM. I would probably put them, like, if I was power ranking, 3rd right now, maybe in the league.
I want to refer to our TSM section last week when I was talking about, okay, they needed to stabilize. Like, this team needed to have a direction, and they found that. Huni playing more conservative topside, lots of tanks for them, initiation, between him, Sordar, and Spica, much more coordinated. They cleaned up a lot of the small timing window issues and some of the communication there. Power of Evil getting a lot of resources, hard carry, mage player from the mid lane. Great. Now, when are we going to see them, start to branch back out? And I actually really love that it was immediate. Like the very next week, this last week, they start putting Huni on Jace again. They start doing some 1-3-1 as a team, trying to actually move beyond. Yes, we stabilized. We feel confident now. Let's actually try some more styles. Let's try some more carry tops. And even though they did lose the second Jace game on top side there with Huni, I thought it was off of some good counterplay and some good pivotal moments. They still had a lot of good setup with it and were able to get some good advantages. And 1-3-1, those types of comps are definitely the more difficult to pull off. So I do still like the direction and I'm also positive.
Mm-hmm. I was pretty positive on TSM as well. The one thing I will say is they basically did 3 games of split push for Huni, right? They had Shen and Jace.
Mm-hmm. They clearly came into this week and they're like, all right, we got the plan. Let's try this now.
We're gonna play side lanes, and I do think while they went 2-1, when I think back to the individual games, I'm like, all right, well, there was the Team Liquid game that felt like more of like a throw from TL than a win from TSM. I do think TSM did a good job to be able to capitalize on some of the mistakes, but it did feel like they were very scrappy games. And, if I'm recalling a lot of situations, it's like, okay, they're having to go for backdoors and they're having to, give objectives and just try to hard commit to the split push. And Kaisa is split pushing even at times and just trying to take towers. It didn't feel like they were super controlled games. I do think it's a positive, to your guys' point, to be stepping out of that comfort zone a bit, because now it felt like, okay, you've created your identity, Huni weak side, play towards Sword Art instead of Sword Art playing towards other lanes, and that's how it's going to be. And I think Huni's improved massively when you look back to lock-in and even the early weeks of spring. He has gotten much better, so I think that is really promising. I don't think that the games they showed this weekend, as far as the split push style, were super impressive. But I think that if they can clean that up, it's great to have an extra style under your belt. And I'm still agreed that I think they are a contender. I do think that they're a top 3 team right now, and that's pretty cool.
Work on keeping enemy junglers out of smite fights for objectives. That's definitely always a team game there. Yes, it's always great to have a clutch smiter, but also.
Yeah, I was gonna say Spica's smites have been insane this split, and it was like that FlyQuest game when Jose Diodo got the smite off him. I was almost shocked, for the soul point. I was like, wait, that never happens. What was that?
He's got those young hands, man. He's quick with the smite. EG is to me, I'm feeling more and more like it's kind of pretender, just because the team just doesn't seem to be able to really get consistent enough, and I think that is a legitimate concern. It's just the fact that when you're looking forward to best of 5, I don't know that they could string together enough good games to beat one of these top teams at a best of 5. That's my legitimate concern. Do I think that they could beat TL or TSM or C9 on any given day? Sure, I think they could win a game, but I think it's becoming problematic that they don't seem to be able to string together these games, and they do feel like they are kind of falling back into the very up or down. It's super reliant on Jizuke. It feels like if Jizuke is having a good game, then they can have a great game, but if he's not, things seem pretty difficult.
Yeah, I think EG is clearly better than a lot of the teams below them in the standings. It's not like I think they're getting lucky or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at that Golden Guardians win. It was really sus for a lot of that game, and then they were able to clutch it out, like you're saying, with their team fighting. Definitely has been good. I think a lot of their players individually have been pretty good, impact and stuff like that. But it does feel like they, as a team, still make some pretty big mistakes. Which is why, like you're saying, to win 5 games in a row against the other teams who are playing well would be hard to believe.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, 3 out of 5.
I mean, I feel like to confidently put, but aside from Cloud9, because that's one I think we would all be pretty confident in any matchup, in giving extra weight to. There definitely is a decent amount of variance with any of the other matchups of these top teams. I do like the point of, even though EG were on a 3-game win streak and they lost 1 game this weekend. So they did get a decent amount of wins on the board. A lot of those wins were moments that could have gone either way, and required in some of them some mistakes from opponent, in some of them some big plays, admittedly, from their own players. It's not that super like weighted blankets safe feeling when you go into an EG
I mean,
game.
it was all teams near the bottom too, right? It was CLG,
yeah,
Golden Guardians,
C9.
and FlyQuest.
and they lost
were
the
the three
Cloud9
last
game.
wins. Were the three last wins. They lost to Cloud9 in there as well. And they lost to Cloud9 quickly. And then in those 3 wins that they have,
They worked for
40-minute game, 45-minute game, and a 42-53 game, right? So it's like all very long, all hotly contested games against the bottom teams in the league, and then 1 game where they got clapped by Cloud9. So that was like, ooh, yes, you were getting wins this week, but this is the easiest part of your schedule, and it kind of felt like a regression because those were the slowest games of the year for them, and it didn't feel like they knew how to close out. Even the Golden Guardians one, where they got Baron, and then they were trying to siege into Sivir, and it was like, just push 3 lanes. You can't do anything into the Sivir that has like full items, and was just insta clearing your waves. They're only pushing 2 waves with Baron buff. I felt like that was really disappointing. It's just like trying to siege into Anivia and Sivir and these types of champs. Doesn't matter if you have Baron; they're going to kill the wave.
I was going to comment on the split pushing specifically because it must have been the Cloud9 game then, because I was casting it, and I'm just spent 2 minutes talking about how, all right, EG, right now you have to be really careful when coordinating, pushing out your side lanes for this split push, because Baron is available. You need to have the rest of your team applying pressure so that if they pick off one of the prongs of your split push, then you can make your play on the other side of the map. And guess what happens 10 seconds later? 4 members of EG are recalling. Jizuke is halfway across the map, pushing out on the bottom side, and so he gets picked off by Cloud9. And after that, all the members of EG are recalling, so they're all in base. Cloud9 transitions right over, to the Baron off of this big pick where they don't have any other pressure on the other side of the map, and it's an Orianna pushing out waves with no vision on the bottom side of the map up to almost the river. And so those types of things still happen sometimes in EG games. And yet, then I also look back to last week, where their game versus Team Liquid. You're talking about ending games. That was a 33 minutes there versus Team Liquid, making quick work, right, with Impact, versus his old team. So that's why I think it's mostly about consistency worries, and some of these situations that do come up where you think, and you're looking back in review, you're like, all right, that's probably one of the easier ones to point out and solve, because there are so many of these big exciting moments that are pivotal. And then you get the other side of the coin where the enemy just got Elder Dragon, stole it away there for FlyQuest, and Jizuke Shockwaves kills 3 of them. Boom, game's over instead. Nice Elder Dragon, suckers.
All right, we got the next kind of grouping of teams: Immortals, Fly, and then obviously at the bottom we have CLG, who did get their second win, and Golden Guardians. How are you guys feeling about the improvement? We'll kind of group these teams. Well, CLG is not really a development roster; they're a bunch of veterans. But how are you feeling about the improvement of these teams, or lack thereof?
So, can a team of bunch of veterans be development roster? I mean, you can start with any dough and say that you want to develop this dough into a pizza.
Yeah, but
this
that's
dough
not
could be
that's
old.
not what the term
you
is.
could have tried to turn this dough into a pizza before. It's
you have a piece of bread and you're like, I'm gonna make a pizza.
When people say development roster, though, they're meaning it's like this is
I know.
Formed with the intention. It's not that veterans can't improve. I'm not saying that. It's a team formed with the intention of building towards the future, of not having success right now. Right? Of course, everyone wants success right now, but Golden Guardians and FlyQuest and Immortals, those teams, I don't think were under any illusions that they're going to win the championship this year. I feel like CLG was built maybe not to win the championship, but they were built to compete right away. That's why you buy all these veterans. And they're 2-10.
Yeah, and obviously the drawback there is like, okay, the couple of the veterans that they bought were not able to come, and so they had to change out a lot of pieces. Yeah, anyways, their win, it had to be a big comeback victory, and it did have to be off of just okay. I really like the Kled pick, but it was not like complicated how they make their comeback. They get this mid team fight and they get the victory there, and then you're just Kled ulting and charging in with Olaf and extra speed and ramming it into them at these objectives and winning these team fights, and they successfully were able to get to this point. Item breakpoints on their carries. Turtle on the Tristana. There are some plays that kind of, as Saligo walking into the explosive shot and stuff like that definitely help them out in these areas. But it's like, yes, this is a great first step. I didn't see any like revolutionary plays or things that changed a lot of the opinion here, because there were, to me, plenty of games that they should have won before off of small moments like that, and they happen to be losses. And this one. They were actually able to turn it into a win this time around. That was the difference. Yeah. It wasn't like, oh, these games look so different, or the play is so different, or the strategy is so different from some of the ones that did turn into losses. So it wasn't like a revolution.
I think
airy moment or anything. But Brox is being happy, and it is great to get morale boosted by getting a win and finally getting a win. I love the hugs going around for everybody afterwards. We did it. All right, that's step number one. Now
it's the podium meme, right? Elias, one of our writers,
I love that. Yeah,
tweeted that, and it's like the guy celebrating, kissing the girl, getting the medal, pouring the champagne, and then he's in third place is normally the meme, but Elias posted that, but it's CLG in there. It's like first, second, and it says 10th on their podium, and it's CLG with the champagne. I was like, that's perfect.
I think the funny thing about that game too was it was kind of the inverse of a lot of their losses. Like they still got first blood, but then they fell behind, and then the other team kind of threw a little bit. And I think Pobelter's Victor was pretty good, maybe not through the early game, but like in the mid game for stalling out and stopping a lot of their dives and then winning team fights. A lot of that was a Victor as well. So I don't know if they can actually they're one of these teams that doesn't feel hopeless in a lot of ways, despite like the negative aura around the organization. In terms of like games, it's like, oh, there's enough like little glimmers there. Like Smoothie and Turtles laning has been like okay, they've gotten 2v2 kills and they like make stuff happen. And Smoothie's engages that game were a lot better as well. So I have slight optimism for CLG, if not this split. Maybe next split being more a little bit. I still wouldn't ever call them contenders, but being more in that EG Dig tier.
Yeah, my concern with them is just that I actually thought that with all the veterans on their team, their strength was going to be like being calm and making good decisions, and they were going to be the ones that maybe they don't get ahead a lot, but like maybe they can do stuff in the late game, and it's kind of been the inverse, right? And they did get this win. But to Kobe's point, it didn't really feel like anything revolutionary. It's just like, oh, well, actually, you were getting trashed this game, and then you randomly won a team fight and you won the game. And I think that Pobelter does deserve credit because I think he played really well. But when you pointed out the Wild Turtle Smoothie bot laning, I actually think that Turtle is solid. But I just immediately remembered that game now.
All-Star level 6?
Yeah, where they do this like fake recall and they hide in the brush, and Smoothie's level 5. And then they see an Alistar walk over a ward
whose idea was
level
that?
6 towards them, and then don't run away, and then they just wait, and they're like, all right, time to fight the level 6 Alistar, and they just engage on him, and both immediately die with all their summoners and everything available, and I'm just like, this is the dumbest engage I've ever seen.
Yeah, and again, like we were saying last week, we're like, all right, this is the team invested heavily in experience and veterans. That looked like a decision that is made by someone who has not played a lot of League of Legends. It does not know like what's going to happen.
Cow is. Let's find out.
Doesn't know what's going to happen when an Alistar level 6 walks into you. And by the way, the Smoothie was Rel was level 5 at the point, so he didn't have his ultimate. So like you're like, all right. Let's find out in the next episode what happens. And you can see the confidence. who's the All-Star at that point?
Afro.
Afro. Yeah, it's Afro. Afro's like, yeah, I know what's gonna happen. I'm gonna go face check this bus. If they're in here, we got them, right? He's like charging straight for it. It's a beeline. He's like, I'm checking this bush.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Funny.
That was honestly terrible. All right, Golden Guardians, 2-10 as well. But it feels like people feel very differently about them because of the way that the roster was built. Same record as CLG, but you have a couple collegiate players. You got some guys fresh out of academy, so it feels like, hey, you have 2 wins. You had a lot of games that actually could have been wins, including I think a couple this weekend where it did feel like they kind of threw the ball a little bit and dropped the ball, rather, I should say. But I think overall, I feel okay about Golden Guardians. I feel like there has been some improvement. I do think that, it was nice to see the Iconic Lilia game where he was actually having like an active game where he was, attacking lanes and getting involved. I think that's something that, is important to see because I think Iconic was one of the guys that when we look back to lock-in, people were pointing at and be like, hey, you're pretty good. But he has been very one note for me in the LCS. It's just been like, all right, you're really passive, you farm it up, and then you show up to fights and you play pretty darn well in team fights, right? But even when drafts demanded like more jungle attention, he didn't really give it. So that felt like a bit of a divergence when he played pretty proactive on the Lilia. So that was nice to see. I think as far as Niles, he still has a lot longer of a way to go. Like he feels like he's just kind of getting exploited almost every game. And the biggest thing for me is he just feels like he has a lack of understanding of how to control the waves. And that is something that he is getting exploited on so hard by these top laners that know exactly what to do, right? He's playing against Someday and Impact and Alfari and these guys, and he over pushes waves and can't get it into the turret. And that feels like it happens almost every game against the top players, is he actually just doesn't know how much am I supposed to attack the wave? Do I do it now? And he tries to sometimes go for like these 2-wave crashes instead of 3-wave crashes and stuff like that, where he can't fully get it in, and the opposing laner like holds 3 or 4 minions outside of his turret, and he's like, well, what do I do now? And then he starts getting traded on, he gets ganked, and it kind of snowballs. So I think that Niles can improve, and I think that as he gets more like coaching on his laning and actually understanding the minion waves, hopefully we will see him dying a lot less, because I think he dies so much because his waves are always screwed because he didn't know how to push them.
Yeah, I was gonna comment on this when you're talking about Iconic's early presence, and because I remember clearly that he goes to gank topside, and we're talking about this exactly as it happens. And we're like, oh, here it is. That exact gank is where he goes for the gank. And now leaves. There's like 2 or 3 minions that impact immediately on Renekton, walks up to get aggro of, keeps them from going all the way into the turret. Iconic finishes his recall behind blue buff in enemy jungle, lays down the wards to see when enemy jungle is going to come. But the recall completes, he's out of there. Top and jungle, this has to be both of you full attention on minion wave management. It is also a jungler's job to help with this.
Show up,
yes,
reset the wave when you're screwed.
It is mainly on the laner to communicate it also, but junglers are so used to this as well, because your laners get left in these types of spots, and they're just absolutely screwed. So even though there is a ward back there, because the recall completes, Impact grabs the wave right in front of his turret. Here comes Olaf. Yeah, you see him, and so then he has to give up so many CS, and you can see the panic set in, and he's like, oh shit, it's happened again. Is there Renekton with the wave position and an Olaf up here? Like, now what do you do? Well, now you're screwed.
I want to give a quick shout out to the Immortals FlyQuest mid laners for being the 2 of the newer NA mids getting starting time. I think Insanity and Palafox have both been decent overall this split, and when we're talking about development, like, both these teams have bright spots that I'm looking forward to see where they go. Jose Dioto, I think, is actually really good. His biggest issue is like late game team fighting. He sometimes gets a little trigger happy and gets in the middle of a scrap that he shouldn't be. But overall, I think both those teams, for what they're trying to be, are in decent spots. I would want to see a little bit more out of FlyQuest. I thought they'd be a little bit higher, but it's still not terrible or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think for FlyQuest, there has been more of a learning curve, or whatever you want to call it, than people expected. You know, I expected Palafox to be better out of the gate. I expected their bot lane to be better out of
Yeah.
the gate. One thing I will say though is I feel like I've seen a clear improvement from the FlyQuest bot lane, and I think Palafox is getting better too. I think that when you look back to those early weeks on both in lock-in and as well as the start of Spring Split, Diamond looked like so hesitant and looked like unsure of himself, I think, and a lot of these champions, even when he's playing engaged champions, he wasn't always, pulling the trigger when he had to. And I think that for the most part is gone now. I don't think that they are dominating, but I think that it's nice to see players playing with confidence, right? And in the FlyQuest win that they had, who was it against? TL? Someone? I can't remember. They had a big win this weekend. I'm struggling to remember who it actually was against. But there was like the Relo Star play, right, where he goes in and he misses all his abilities and everything. And I was like, oh no, is that going to kind of like blow up your confidence? But he continued to go in, and every other engage he had the whole game was really really good, right? And I think that's what you need to see is you need to be able to shake off a bad play, you need to be able to shake off a bad moment, and continue to do your job, right? And don't doubt yourself when you see the engages. Doesn't matter who you're playing against. If this is what you're supposed to do, if that's your job in the game, you've got to be able to go for it. You've got to be able to find those moments, especially as a support, where often you are the one your team is relying on in this meta to engage, whether it's Rel or Alistar or whatever. You've got to see it, that split moment. He stepped too far forward. All right, we go, right? And you need to be able to have confidence in yourself to pull that off. And I feel like Diamond's developing that, which for me has been fun to watch.
Well, perfect timing then, because guess what? Honda MVP has arrived, and with the jungle nerfs, that means that other roles have a chance to step up. We're just talking about mid and support. So, who are your next two most impactful mid support, combinations that we have in the LCS? Or who is just basically would be your Honda MVP mid plus support as a combo?
Oh, okay. So specifically as a duo.
Mm.
I mean, CoreJJ Jensen, I guess, right? I just think that I still think CoreJJ is so insane. I think that Perks and Vulcan, those are like the really obvious ones, but those are the ones that really pop out to me. I think Perks has gotten so much better. I still think Vulcan's playing really, really well. I'm trying to think how much they actually like play together, though. I do feel like TL, it's less about like Jensen and CoreJJ grouping up and more I'm just like, well, those guys are really good. That's a good combo to have on your team. Because I'm trying to think about who actually plays together as a support and mid lane, and that I'm less sure of.
I feel like Sword Art and PoE is actually not a bad one. Sword Art does have a lot of roams, and a lot of them are towards mid lane. And PoE is a player worth investing in if you can get him ahead or whatnot. So I would say that one might be one of the more enticing mid.
Yeah, I think those are all. I think those are all good callouts. I was gonna say if I could reverse 2 weeks, I could go back in time. I'd love to say Demonte and Huhi, because those are two of the most proactive mid jungle. Constantly making dives and creating plays for the team, roaming across the map. But probably off the list for the last couple weeks that we have seen from them. Pretty good answers there, fellas. Shall we?
Thanks,
pretty good answers. I'll give you credit.
I mean, it's just one of those things. I think it's easy to name who you think are the best. It's harder if you haven't thought about it and actually looked into how much people play together. Because normally you think about mid jungle duos, you think about bot lanes, you think about top jungle. Mid support is kind of an oddball duo that I don't really think as much about, right? It's
yeah, exactly.
The game isn't played as much around those. Usually, it's just like, okay, do you have a support that roams mid a lot?
And I think too, part of it is like they don't have to be making the plays together. I think part of it was aimed at who are the next ones, like as a team, that both have players in these two positions that do a lot of that movement because jungle got nerfed, and they're trying to look at, okay, these are the next two roles that move the most, which is why I was kind of thinking back to the earlier 100 Thieves days, and I was like, well, that one would have been a shoo-in because that was when all this TF and Galio and stuff were Demonte, but not so much anymore. All right, anchor question time then. Redcatone has a question for us on
Redcat one.
summoner spells.
Over the years, it seems like every system in League has undergone significant change with the exception of summoner spells. Do you think Riot will ever change how summoner spells work? If you were in charge, what changes would you want to experiment with?
I mean, Riot has changed how summoner spells work. You know, if you think about, God, what was that one that revealed vision in an area?
Clarity? Clairvoyance.
Clairvoyance is gone. Clarity is gone. Right?
Yeah,
that's changes. I don't know exactly what he means, but like they do change the power of summoner spells and stuff as well.
I mean, it's been the least changed system probably. Like items have gone through more, jungle has gone through more, runes have seen massive reworks in recent years. Yep. The clairvoyance changes was like, I don't even know, like season 3, season 4
years ago.
Like they
Fortify used to be a thing.
Fortify used to have
Revive
flash on a 3.5 minute cooldown. There was a period of time where heal not only healed you, but it sped you up and removed grievous wounds off you. So the counter to healing, the counter to the healing was healing. I remember playing in that meta. That was fun. We took 4 heals with like Mundo, Xin, Soraka, and just that was really troll time. But like I agree ultimately with the guy. Like the biggest changes are probably TP when they changed it so you couldn't cancel TP. I think that was like the last big one I can.
That was a
remember.
really good change, by the way. I think.
Yeah.
So they have looked at multiple times throughout League's history at making big changes and specifically to Flash. And from all of the testing and all of the player feedback, people freaking hated changes to Flash. Do not take away my Flash. Do not,
make it shorter.
Increase the cooldown. Like Flash is so sick. Like that feels great to use. It feels, it changes the way some champions works. So like Flash itself being so pivotal kind of makes all of the stuff around summoner spells hard to change too much because it is such an integral part, to the game and to a lot of champions and to people's understanding of League of Legends that I think it'd be really hard to make a big change. I'd say that the closest thing they actually have come to with changing summoner spells is summoner spellbook. And I think that's actually pretty cool. How we do have an option that's a choice that you can choose into to then change how your summoner spells work. And they've had a couple of iterations of that and tried to improve on that, which I
think movement in general, anytime you mess with movement, it's such a big change, right? Like they did some of that with the item rework, with mythic items, right? There's like Gale Force and Prowler's Claw and stuff. But those are pretty limited towards specific types of champions. So when you take something that is just like everyone takes this, like Flash, right? And you change how that works, that really does send so many ripples throughout the game and changing how things work as far as even just the power of champions. If you're going to rework summoner spells completely, you have to basically rebalance every single champion in the game, it feels like, around that for what they've gained and lost. And I think that is a massive undertaking. Will Riot ever do it? I think they will at some point, right? I think at some point that's going to happen, but I think it would be a huge undertaking and probably not for a while.
What do you think, Mark?
Well,
Phil?
I agree.
Finish.
I think we should delete summoner spells.
All of
That's
them.
A bold assertion there.
Get rid of them.
Just
and items
just take
too. And runes and champions.
Oh, so it's Heroes of the Storm.
And on that note, we will wrap it up for this week. Thank you again to Honda for making this episode possible. And remember, you can check us out on
take those out.
Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor.fm, and especially sub to our new YouTube channel, youtube.com/LCS. You can also send your questions on Twitter using the hashtag #TheDiveLOL or send us your voice messages on Anchor.fm at our page. Catch us again next week. Thank you for joining us and see you then.